Hey there, Richard Drew, pro Enduro rider. We're out here surrounded by the Oz Trails in beautiful Bentonville, Arkansas. It's time for another bike overview, and today it's the Pivot Switchblade. So, I was super excited to get this bike for one big reason. I came up here about 8 months ago, brought a 429 Trail, set up on 27.5 plus tires, and it was an absolute blast. I loved it, had so much fun, incredibly versatile, but there were a few areas where, I'll admit, I sent it, and that bike needed a little bit more travel. So looking at the specs on the Switchblade, man, it would lead me to believe this could potentially be the one bike to do it all. All right, my goal with this is to equip you to make the decision of, is this the right bike for me? I'm gonna give you an overview of how I use the bike, some things I've changed around, and where I feel it really excels, and where I feel it might excel as a great bike for you. What is this bike? Well, it's a trail bike, it's an enduro bike, it's a long travel 29er. There are a ton of bikes that fit into this category, especially now. So one of the key buzzwords out in the market is versatility. This bike certainly has a great deal of versatility, and it's not just because you can run a 27.5-inch plus wheel or a 29, it's because of how inherently different the bike is with each wheel size. All right, let's talk wheel choice. You got to make a decision, 27.5 plus or 29. Pretty decent stock setup. The 27.5 plus is a DT Swiss, 40 millimeter internal. It's going to come with a 2.8 Maxxis Recon. Awesome tire. If you decide to go with 29s, you're going to get the DT Swiss, a little bit narrower rim profile, but still pretty decent. They're both going to have the 32 tooth star ratchet engagement. If you're not sure what that means, that's taking that DT hub and doubling the points of engagement. Points of engagement, they're key, and it's the sole reason I started running Industry 9 wheels. My two wheel sets from Industry 9 are the Backcountry 360, that's for 27.5 plus. It's a 36 millimeter internal width. Or right here we have the Enduro 305 when I'm set up 29. It's a 30.5 rim width profile. And that wider profile helps make the tire perform a little bit better. Now when we bring it back to engagement, the Industry 9 hubs have 120 points of engagement. So picture, if you will, one of these really technical rocky sections, and I'm trying to do a multiple lift move. What I'll end up doing is rotating the pedals back a little bit to make sure the placement is proper. And when you have 120 points of engagement, as soon as you go back to the power, it's instantly on. And when you experience something with less points of engagement, then go to something with, for example, 120 points, your riding style adapts to that. So it's pretty interesting how much of an advantage I think these hubs are. In the rear, 135 millimeters of DW Link suspension. The DW Link simply gives you a very stable pedaling platform, but also gives you capability to hit some of those bigger elements. Up front, this bike's set up factory 150 millimeters. It's a Fox 36 factory fork with the Kashima coating. You can also run a 160 if you so desire. So suspension needs covered really well. This bike is a factory X01 build, MSRP $71.99. We have the X01 Eagle 12-speed drivetrain. Let's talk some particulars, how my bike's set up and what I do with it. As far as the cockpit goes, bone stock. You got a 760 millimeter wide carbon riser bar, Pivot Phoenix brand. Great bar. It's got the really cool chamfered cut on the edge of the bar that matches up with these padlock grips. If you've never experienced the padlock grip, it's got this big cushion out on the side to really help dampen some of that vibration that feeds back through the bars. We have a 55 millimeter stem on this bike because this frame is a size large. Now we gotta dive into this a little bit. I'm only 5'10", and if I look at Pivot sizing guidelines, I should be on a medium. The reason I am on a large is because I prefer a longer bike and the ability to shorten it up with stem if need to. And the reason for that is my background. I grew up racing BMX, and motocross. So for me, I'm very comfortable and confident in my ability to maneuver this bike, especially in tight areas, but then also get that stability that the longer wheelbase gives me. All right, some upgrades you do because you learn the hard way, and that's because they fail on you in the last stage of an Enduro. And that's what happened to me with the pulley wheels on this rear derailleur. So anybody running the Eagle setup, you do a little bit of research and you'll see these wheels can have a tendency to break because they're plastic. Super easy and cost-effective fix are the Kogel pulley wheels. So what else have I done to my bike? Honestly, really not a lot. Keeping most of the factory setup. Obviously, we've talked about the wheel upgrade. Another key component that I think you must do, this is imperative for any rider, any style of riding, and any trail, and that is an MRP chain guide bash guard. This is the SXG version right here. It's very cost effective, it's very easy to install, and it's something that it'll give you miles of enjoyment because your chain's not going to drop, but it also gives you a little bit of added insurance with that bash guard built into the bottom. Now, let's get to something that's pretty pivotal. What's the best use case scenario for this bike? And I have to tell you, it's a very broad spectrum of use in my opinion. And the reason I say that is because my usage, it's been pretty darn eclectic. It ranges from 50-mile, I would say pure cross-country rides, to some really legit gnarly terrain in a pro enduro race, and everything in between. I've gotten out and I've hit rides of 15, 20, 25 miles, doing some urban adventures from my house downtown through Dallas. I really think this bike excels at pretty much all of those areas. Now, what are some caveats to that? Well, I have to tell you, my background, starting riding BMX and racing at 5 years old, I've spent years and years riding a fixed bike in regards to no suspension. What that was able to do was set me up to take this bike that at 150 and 135 millimeters may not seem very big or capable in some aspects, but my background allows me to make this bike excel in those areas. I'm able to smoothen out some of those bigger hits. Now for me, 5'10", roughly 190, I think it's a good fit on this bike. If you're somebody that's bigger, maybe you're 6 foot, maybe you're 200 plus pounds, that's something that you're gonna need to think about. I'm not saying this isn't the bike for you, but you may wanna err on the side of something larger, like a Mach 6 or even a Firebird 29. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Is the Pivot Switchblade the one do-it-all bike for you? I wish I could answer that question, but I can't. That's up to you. But the idea is, with this, you now have some more tools in your arsenal to make a more educated decision. This is what it boils down to. I love this bike. I think it's an incredibly versatile bike. If you're somebody that wants to get out and rip these big trails here in Bentonville or anywhere for that matter, get it set up on 27.5-inch plus. It's very forgiving, it's very fun, the traction's amazing. But if in the back of your mind you're thinking, but man, I still like that old school XC hammer time, throw some 29s on this thing, fast rolling tires, go out and get it. I've done it a few times, it's awesome. The bike handles both ends of the spectrum and everything in between. Now, you're close but still not sure? Drop a question or comment down below. I'm more than happy to answer to the best of my ability. Here's the point. I want you out there shredding the trail. I'd love to see you on a Pivot, but hey, I just want to see you on any bike. So, if you want to follow more of my adventures on two wheels, check me out at @TheRichDrew on Instagram. And also, if you maybe want to improve your skill a little bit, go check out the Ride Series, mtbskillsclinics.com. So hopefully, you're ready to go out and rip. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the trails. So versatile. So stable. So fun.